1 in 3 is intended for mature audiences. Episodes contain explicit content and may be triggering as they often include violence and other varying forms of abuse such as emotional, psychological, sexual, and physical. In most cases, names have been changed to protect all involved. Please note, statements and opinions of guests do not necessarily reflect those of my own. Hi, warriors. Welcome to 1 in 3. I'm your host, Ingrid. Leaving a domestic violence relationship doesn't necessarily mean the challenges are over. It doesn't make navigating the legal system any easier either. When it comes time to form your team, build a strategy, and face the process head on, it can seem so overwhelming, making an already frightening situation seem impossible. That's why experts like today's guest are so important. I'm excited to introduce Lisa Johnson, a certified domestic violence advocate, high conflict divorce strategist, and co-founder of Been There, Got Out. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to 1 in 3. I have been looking forward to this episode for a very long time.
Me too. I'm excited.
I have quite a few friends who have been asking about when this is going to be going live already. I guess we need to say what we're talking about. So go ahead and give a background of your topic and I guess why you got into it too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I mean, big question. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. So, my name is Lisa Johnson. I am the female half of Been There, Got Out. And I'm a high conflict divorce strategist who specializes in something called legal abuse. And that's where our clients' exes basically weaponize the justice system to wear us down and bleed us dry financially. So Chris and I, my partner, work with the most extreme divorces, separations, custody battles, and co-parenting hell. And we try to save our clients time, money, and energy throughout the muck of family court and thereafter. So we really get into a lot of the granular stuff. Like, we're not typical what you imagine divorce coaches. We don't focus on like how life is much better on the other side. We carry you through the court stuff, again, like working with an attorney, and if you have run out of money, like I did, then representing yourself successfully. So I basically spent 10 years in the legal system with my own case. Most of that was post-judgment, meaning after the divorce was finalized. It took 1 year and $100,000 to get out of that marriage. And then the rest was post-judgment, which was about 100 court appearances, like I said, in about 7.5 years in 2 states. And then my ex appealed 4 times. I represented myself at the appellate level. And the case was so notable that it got published as case law in Connecticut, which is, I always say, it's a huge honor for an attorney. And I've been told that no one's ever heard of a pro se or self-represented litigant like me being published. So I'm always like really, really proud of that. And then I also gave live testimony, which helped pass something called Jennifer's Law, which is the name of the law that expanded my state's legal definition of domestic violence to include coercive control. So that's all that invisible abuse that people don't usually take as seriously when they're like, well, at least they didn't hit you. Well, a lot of coercive control and invisible abuse doesn't leave scars, but it's a lot worse. So Maine just became, I think, the 10th or 11th state just a few days ago to pass coercive control legislation. And then my ex decided to sue Chris and I for $4 million in defamation in civil court. And that was like year 9 in court. And I just was like, of course, you can't just leave us alone. So we got that taken care of ourselves. It took a few months. I was terrified, even though everybody told me not to worry. And we got that thrown out. And then our first baby came out in 2023. It was our first book. It's called Been There, Got Out: Toxic Relationships, High Conflict Divorce, and How to Stay Sane Under Insane Circumstances. And our current book is called When Your Ex Turns the Kids Against You. That's coming out early 2026. And that's about the topic of whatever you want to call parental alienation, abuse by proxy, coercive control, poisoning the well. But that is something we see more than almost anything else in the extreme divorce and post-judgment world, where people are using children to punish their exes. And it is just horrific. It is one of the most heartbreaking things that we see. And according to statistics, about 20 to 22 million divorced parents in America and Canada alone are experiencing this.
That's terrible. That's actually another topic that I really would love to get into. So maybe I'll have to have you back on, because it is kind of a taboo topic, because I guess I read one article where it was talking about how they were looking at it as and not to say that the bad guy is always the dad or the good guy is always the mom, but like, for an example, the mom, and just to use the term good guy, bad guy, but the mom was trying to do what was best for the children, but then she was being accused of alienating the father. But yeah, I'm not going to go on that tangent because I won't stop. But obviously with your background, you have the expertise and the experience, the personal experience, to definitely be the person to come on and talk about legal abuse and navigating the legal system, going through all of this drama with these exes. And it doesn't start in the courtroom, right? So like, when should somebody start preparing for this battle?
Well, I mean, legal abuse and a person turning children against another parent starts often while you're still in the relationship. When I was first of all, I was with my ex for 20 years. We were married for nearly 18. I never thought I would get a divorce. And so for those last 2 years, it was really, that's a whole other story, but it became apparent that there were things that were irreparable. It became more painful to stay than to leave. And I really took my time and thought I was being really careful with an exit plan. And when I finally did talk to a divorce attorney who I ended up hiring, he said, within 20 minutes of the consult, yours is going to be a really bad case. Yours is going to be one of the worst ones. And I was like, what? Because in my head, I thought my ex is a good guy. He's just done some bad things. And later I interviewed that attorney for our book, and he didn't know at the time. He hadn't organized what he was thinking when he told me it would be bad, but we managed to break it down into a few different factors that indicate high conflict divorce. And so one of the things that I didn't realize at the time, and now it makes a lot of sense, is that is when somebody has addiction or mental illness. Because and I'm not talking about someone in recovery, that's completely different. But when someone has a mental illness, it means their judgment is impaired. Same with addiction. And so they're not thinking properly. They're not thinking logically. They're not thinking even in their own best interests, and forget about the family and the children. So when you're dealing with someone like that, they make the process very, very difficult. Often we see with our clients' exes, who usually have some kind of personality disorder, that they don't follow the normal cadence of what you'd expect from a separation or divorce. So most people think, okay, everybody is angry in the beginning and you want to kind of move on with your lives and things settle down. But the problem is, with someone with one of those issues, they're not coming to the table doing what's fair. And again, what's best for the kids and the family. They're doing what's best for themselves. And it's very short-term thinking. So they will often, they're concerned with punishment because it's of the end of the relationship. We can get into why, but it just ends up exploding everything. My lawyer's paralegal said something that I'll never forget. She said, once you leave, the power dynamic in the relationship increases tenfold. And I would say probably more than that. So when somebody starts losing control, and that's been the nature of the relationship, they go a lot harder post-separation. And many of our clients feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's worse than if I had stayed, because at least I had more control. Now it's up to strangers in the legal system, and all these people are getting in the midst of my parenting. And it's awful. And my ex, who used to not be around as much, is now fighting as hard as possible to hurt me the most by usually custody, trying to take the kids away from me. So very difficult.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest fears too, is do I go forward with a divorce? If I do, who's going to be here to kind of be the buffer for the kids? Or how do I guarantee that I get the kids as much as I want?
Yeah, and you can't. And that's the thing. And in terms of being a buffer, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think that they're staying for the sake of the kids and that they can be a buffer, especially when there's violence taking place. And again, I'm not just talking physical, I'm talking verbal, psychological, sexual, financial, all those things that people think, well, if kids don't see it, they're not really understanding what's going on. But one of the worst things you can do is stay for the sake of the kids, because kids do feel like it, and home is, they do absorb that negative energy. Home is supposed to be a safe place. And when kids are in a domestic violence situation, they compare it to being in a war zone, because the one place you think is safe is actually dangerous. So it is very harmful to kids to be in these unhealthy relationships. And not only that, but it also teaches them that the relationship their parents have is normal. So no matter what you tell them, they're going to gravitate towards what's familiar, and they're going to keep repeating those cycles. So, I mean, and also what you can't really be a buffer if you can't even protect yourself. So it's very complicated. It is not an easy decision.
No, not at all. And one thing that I think is really important to understand is that when you do have the separate households, even if the abusive parent has custody, the children will learn what the safe, consistent home is versus the home where they don't feel comfortable. And I think that is a huge part of making sure that they're developing to understand what is normal and what is safe and what is acceptable behavior.
Yeah, and the scary thing is, so kids learn to do something called code switching. And I learned this term from a parenting coach named Mike Barsamian. He said that it's almost as though they're living in two different cultures. And so they learn to adjust themselves. They fawn, meaning they figure out how to be safe in the different homes. The issue that a lot of our clients, who are all domestic violence, men and women, dealing with is that sometimes children will align with an abuser because they see this parent as the more powerful one. And they see what's happened to the safe parent who's been discarded, rejected, like terrorized. And so they think, well, to keep myself safe, I have to align with that abusive parent. It's not that I love them more, but I have to keep myself safe. It's very, very difficult for a safe parent or a healthy parent to be like, oh my gosh, why is my kid turning away from me? Like, I was the one who raised them. Don't they know? But think about yourself. We as adults were in these unhealthy relationships. We were brainwashed as well. A child doesn't even have the maturity or the frontal lobe in their brain development to be able to have proper judgment. So it is really, really complex.
What do you do for that?
Oh my gosh, so we talk about that a lot in our book that's coming out. There's a lot you can do, but it really starts with establishing strong bonds with your children consistently as early as possible. And even if you haven't, just to make sure that you're able to spend quality time with them and build memories so that when they're hearing all the craziness from the other side, they have to learn to trust their judgment. So a lot of it involves helping a child develop critical thinking skills, helping them learn to advocate for themselves, helping them realize that they need to pay attention to their gut and to say, like, I know that this is true, even though an adult is telling me this. Helping a child learn to question things, not just with their other parent, but in general. There was a singer that I interviewed her name is Tyra Juliet, and she wrote a book, I think it's called The Sky is Red. And it's based on this game that we always have our clients play with really young kids, where you will be, let's say, taking a walk or spending time with them, and you deliberately make an observation that's false. And you look at them like the sky is red. And you want them to say, what? The sky is not red. But if they don't question you, that's when you need to start saying, do you agree with me? Is that red? Like, what you want them to start realizing what is reality. And even though you're a parent, to question you, like to push back. because that's one of the healthiest things for kids in this situation. And in terms of establishing those bonds, there was a school psychologist that I interviewed named Dr. Alina Boye, and she said that kids really want two things: control and attention. Any age kids. So she said, if you can spend 10 minutes a day getting onto their level, doing something that they want, that they're leading with, even if it's a video game and you think video games are ridiculous, let them lead so they feel like they have some sense of agency in their lives. And you're showing that you're there for them and you're willing to pay attention to what they want to do, even for those few minutes, will impact your relationship so much. Because when you're dealing with an abusive parent on the other side, they don't really care about how anyone else feels or what anyone wants. And they can't keep up that consistent routine of developing positive memories. So this is the foundation of a healthy relationship, where your kids learn, I know what mom or I know what dad is really like myself. So when that terror campaign comes about, all those poisonous messages or whatever it is they're doing to try to turn their kids onto their side to create what's called a loyalty bind, then your kid will be a little bit less likely to fall for it.
I'm taking notes ferociously here.
I take lots of notes too.
Love it. Okay, so so obviously the abuser, because they want to maintain their control, they are saying things to the children, and then they're coming home to the other parent, and sometimes they're telling that other parent what's being said about them. What is a way to navigate the conversation with your children to where you can let them know that that's not appropriate, but then you're also trying not to badmouth the other parent? Because I don't know, like, I just feel that you probably should not do that, because you want them to come to their own conclusions. You don't want them to start feeling that, well, this parent's trying to make me think that way and that parent's trying to make me think the other way.
Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because people make a big mistake with this, where the child is told something false. A poisonous message is about the other parent. They come back to the other parent and they say, Daddy says that you're this, or Mommy says that you're this. And so your instinct is to be like, that's not true, and to defend yourself, right? Because the kid should know what's true. The problem is that kids love generally both their parents and see both parents as an authority. And they think that authorities don't lie. So if one parent's telling them something false, then they go to the other parent and the other parent's telling them the opposite. It's like, I don't know who to believe. And it also is an insult to my intelligence, especially older children, because they're like, I can figure this out for myself. Like, don't tell me what I'm supposed to think. So instead, what's been recommended by a lot of therapists is, when a child comes to you and says these vicious things that you know are just coming straight from your ex out of their mouth, is to first pause and realize that part of this is your ex's attempt to trigger you. Because generally, when they say things like this, the kid says something to you and the child is paying attention to your reaction. When they go back to the other parent will be like, what happened? So it's really like abuse by proxy. Like they're getting at you through the child. So one thing that you can do is, I mean, a lot of it involves self-regulation and realizing, like, I cannot like take the bait here. But when the kid says that, it's like a test, like, what are you going to do, is to kind of take it in and say, wow, where did you get that from? Like, what do you think that's true? Like, why do you believe that? I mean, do you know me, right? Like, why would you say something like that? So instead of being afraid and being like, I need to correct you, the opposite, tell me more. And that helps them develop those critical thinking skills. So they're saying something. A lot of times they're angry or hurt, and there's heartbreak underneath that hostility, because they don't know what's going on. And they're so upset that you're not together anymore, even though it was awful when you were. Like, their lives are the ones that change the most. So they want to see your reaction. And so when you are not afraid and you're just like, whoa, like, tell me more about that. And it depends. Like, if it's a little kid, you'd be like, okay, anyway, let's go. And, you can distract them. Let's go to the birthday party or whatever. But with older kids, I would encourage them to keep talking until they run out of like reason, like what makes you believe that? Like, I want to know. You don't say the other parent is right or wrong. You just say, I want to hear what you have to say. And again, that validates their sense of agency and their ability to think for themselves. But you're encouraging them to go deeper and analyze, like, you're saying something to me. Tell me where it comes from. Like, what led you to believe this?
So if that starts happening enough, say that parent then wants to do something to advocate more for their children. So now, like, getting into the legal system, at what point is that parent able to say the divorce is already over, but then, this is happening, the post, like you were mentioning, post-separation abuse, that this continues to happen, and now there's the concern for the children's well-being, but there's nothing provable. Like, it's not bruises. It's not, I can show you that this child's being physically abused, but there's a manipulation happening there. And there's definitely an emotional and psychological component. What can that parent then do?
Okay, so one of the things that we do more than anything with everybody is something we call strategic communication, where you are communicating only in writing with your ex. And we always say you're writing to your ex, but you're writing for an invisible audience, because our clients are always in court or before, like, evaluators and guardian ad litems and stuff. So we're always like, your goal is to always present as the best co-parent ever. But at the same time, you are documenting your ex's patterns of behavior over time and the impact, the visible impact it has on your children, as well as on your relationship with your children. One of the most important best interest or custody factors is which parent is likely to support the child's relationship with the other parent, because that child is half of each of you. And the flip side of that is one parent attempting to undermine the child's relationship with the other parent? So that's where the whole alienation factors comes under. So let's say your child comes to you and says, Dad said this or Mom said this. So we would follow it up with a written communication that basically, and this is like I'm only scratching the surface of strategic communication, but we would say something like, and again, you need to be very careful, because if you're reporting this back to your ex, if you feel like your child's going to be punished for telling you, you need to consider whether it's worth it. But you might want to say something like our son said that you told him blah, blah, blah. You're just stating a fact, what your child said. And then we would put in something which Chris and I call the universal agreement. And it's a value that everybody believes, that even though your ex is not doing it, they can't disagree with it. And it's for that invisible audience. Then we'd say something like, I'm sure we can both agree how important it is to support each other's relationship with our child. Something like that. And you use your own voice and you fill in the names. So, or I'm sure we can both agree how important it is to shield our child from any conflict between us. And you leave it there. Now, This is setting up documentation for a pattern if this continues, because when you send something like this, you're kind of cornering them. First of all, the best exhibit that you can ever bring to court is your communication with your ex. And strategic communication basically turns hearsay into evidence. So Ingrid, you said you can't prove it, but when I'm writing to my ex and saying, our kid said this happened, I'm not saying I know it's true or not. I'm just saying if it did, I'm sure that we both wouldn't want something like this. We don't want to involve our kid in the conflict. We don't want to badmouth each other. But I'm not saying don't you do this, because I don't know what happened. But I'm putting it out there for that invisible audience to start drawing conclusions if this continues. Now, once in a while, people do things all the time once in a while, but our clients' exes do this all the time. This insidious abuse, that's psychological, that they think nobody's really noticing. So as this continues, well, first of all, let me pause. So the reaction you'll get, okay, the best reaction, which is the rarest, is they'll be like, oh, shoot, this is on the record. I better stop. Okay, probably unlikely, but that's what you want. Like, you want this to get a result where they're like, oh boy, they're smart. They'll be like, I better stop doing this because this is going to hurt me. But more commonly is the silent treatment. This is the second most common, the silent treatment. So they say nothing. And it's aggravating because you're sending messages and they keep doing it and nothing happens. But saying nothing helps strengthen your case, because here you are confronting them about something that matters to the court, like a child has the right to have a relationship with two healthy parents. And you're noting that this person's behavior is interfering or harming your relationship with your child, and they're not even disputing it, then it's part of the record. That becomes evidence. And the most common thing we see is like a wall of rage text that's about how you're a terrible parent, blah, 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 blah. It has nothing to, and again, that is very helpful for your case because they're not actually taking care of a problem, which is a significant issue. Like, you do not undermine or badmouth or whatever it is you're doing, psychologically abuse a child. And I interviewed this New York City attorney named Yoni Leveretz, who said their anger is your gold. So even though most of our clients have had PTSD when it comes to communicating with their ex, where it's like, oh no, oh my gosh, what is it now? By seeing it a little bit differently, like, okay, I'm going to let them get angry at me because this is actually going to help my case, because I can show patterns of how every time I bring this up, they just rage at me and claim that I'm a terrible parent. That just goes to show they're doing exactly what I'm saying it sounds like they're doing. And now I can start thinking about what to ask the court for in terms of relief. And there's like a wide variety of things. But again, it takes time and or like horrible things to happen to build a strong case. So again, it's about patterns of behavior over time. This is not something like they do something a couple times and then, oh, I'm going to, take custody away. That doesn't usually happen.
Right. What other documents are helpful when going into this? Or I know like recording that varies, I think, state to state on what you can record, what you can't record.
Yeah, that's a great question, because people are always like, I'm recording, like what's going on. Okay, first of all, from interviewing a number of attorneys, judges don't really like recordings because they don't know the context. However, if you're dealing with a forensic investigator or a guardian ad litem, that can be helpful because you have more time to really let them examine what's going on and look for those patterns. Judges usually don't have time. They're like, I don't know if AI did this or whatever it is. But someone who can really investigate those recordings might be helpful. But they're not as good as your communication with your ex. You need things that are provable. But other documentation like our Family Wizard, some of those parenting apps are great because they don't let someone alter what was sent. It shows timestamps of when something was opened or closed. Lawyers and courts can have access to those records. And also some of those phone calls or FaceTimes can be recorded I think it's when it's outgoing though. But one of the things that children have a right to is privacy when they're speaking to another parent, when they're at the other parent's house. And so if things are being recorded and that other person is in the background making comments, or even a child looking to the side, I mean, you can see usually when something is going on. That's really good evidence too.
Okay, that makes sense too. So typically, going into a court situation, the victim is still very victimized and it's a very difficult situation. What do you suggest they do to prepare themselves for that scenario? I mean, even like depositions or mediation, all of that can be re-traumatizing to victims.
It absolutely is. I mean, and that's why it's so important to understand that it is going to be re-traumatizing. People are always like, oh, I'm praying the judge sees, or I'm hoping my ex's attorney doesn't attack me. We always plan, they're going to attack you. You are going to get bullied. You're going to be asked some really difficult questions. You're going to be asked about private things that you told your ex when you were still together that you never thought they would use against you. So we basically prepare for that. It's like, okay, how are we going to answer a question as concisely as possible and not give the other side something to like twist around into something? But the main thing that we want to do with our clients is to keep them as calm as possible, not by saying calm down, because that is so triggering, but by helping them be really focused and organized. And so one of the things we really work on with clients is targeted documentation, where we'll talk about, like, let's say it's a custody case. Here are the different best interest factors. Here's what alienation means. Here's where we could build the strongest narrative for you. And then we get into, what do you think your ex is going to attack you with? I mean, and they always know what their ex is going to attack them with because it's been happening the whole time. But where are points of weakness and how can we turn it around? How can we stay focused on the things that matter? We do a lot of role playing with them just to make them less afraid, but not to be like, oh, I just hope there's no surprises. Like there's not going to be any surprises. It's just going to be really hellish. You're going to get through it. And then we often meet afterward to sort of decompress, because for me, all those times in court, the night before court, I couldn't sleep, but then like the 2 or 3 nights after, I couldn't sleep because my brain was processing what had happened in court and being like, did I say the wrong thing? Like, should I have done it differently? What did the judge mean by that? And the body language, and just like panicking. And sometimes it takes another person to be like, okay, let's go through it. And like, you always feel like you did worse than you thought you did. Yeah. So it's helpful to have someone kind of like walk through what happened and again, like calm down and translate what went on. We had a client once, we thought she was mentally ill. I mean, we do have some mentally ill clients, but she was so fixated on how like the judge was not paying attention. This had gone on and on for years. Like nobody was listening. And that's a really common feeling because it's true. But she just couldn't get past like, nobody's listening. My kid has like this medical issue and it's really serious. And then at some point we went over her, and we meet virtually with everybody. So it's like on something like Zoom. So we're like, can you pull up your orders? Like always have your orders in your parenting plan near your computer. Like, let's look through it. She hadn't even realized that she won final legal decision-making on medical, that she had been listened to, that a judge had already given her the power, because she was so traumatized by never being listened that like she had this power for months, that her ex had to report to her, that they had come down because she just hadn't been able to process it. So I think it's important again to remember, like sometimes your brain is already like, again, that trauma like takes over things, and it is important to get other people to help you process it, not necessarily just your friends who don't understand the way that the court system works. And sometimes therapists don't understand either. Often therapists don't understand.
Right. So actually, speaking of therapists, do you think that they play a good role with either the victim or even the children?
Oh, definitely.
If you get the children into therapy.
Absolutely. I mean, so we always talk about like a team approach when it comes to these kinds of cases, because they are so difficult and they go on for years. So you need a team of support. So we often talk about it like the person is like the surface of the table, and there's different legs that support them. So friends and family, if you have them, a lot of our clients have been isolated or they come from toxic families of origin. If you have them, they love you and they want to support you, but they don't really understand what's going on, and they might inadvertently make comments that are very hurtful, like, well, why'd you stay so long? Or I never thought you of all people would fall for it. So that's just one leg. Then you have your lawyer, who's your ally and advocate, but not your therapist, and cannot be there for every little thing. And a lot of us, like I did, leaned on my lawyer too much and spent way too much money. And then, so again, that's, they have to stay in their lane. A therapist can be great, but their job is to help you heal. And some therapists give our clients like horrific legal advice, which could really and has really harmed them in court. Because they'll be like, oh, just don't answer. Oh, just do this. And like we recently had a client who she got her kid a therapist, and the therapist, their divorce took like 1.5 years. They settled, it was done. And the therapist said to her son, who was 13, you don't need to follow the court order if you don't want to visit your dad. Just don't do it. And then, the police will be called and your mom will have to go to court again, but you don't need to do it. And our client was like, what? And then she told me, I said, no, don't you dare. Like, and I would get away from that therapist. That is so outrageous. And then the therapist made her feel like she was a bad parent for not protecting her teenager. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, no. Like that therapist does not understand like the way that like that's a court order. Like you're going to get in big trouble. No.
You can't go violating
No.
court orders. Well, and that I think is a part then where people get stuck, where if there's a court ruling and they feel that it's truly, truly even dangerous, maybe for their kids, and then where do they draw the line of being assertive versus now the court is thinking they're aggressive and, may have more consequences?
Yeah. So my partner Chris, he's really good with coming up with quotes, and he came up with one that says, "If you present as Mama Bear, you're going to get bitten by the system." So, because we see a lot of women who are very protective parents, and they're just like, "I'm going to come in, and my kid needs this and this," and then they end up losing custody because they don't understand what best interest factors mean and the law, and also the system that they're in. You need to realize, I often say it's like the Wizard of Oz, like the judge is the wizard and you're Dorothy. You do not come in telling the judge how to do his or her job. That's going to be a really bad look. So in terms of protecting your child, it's a fine line. Like really understanding what alienation means, I think is very, very important, because whatever happened between the two of you, you need to understand that the courts believe, and most people, therapists, everybody believes that a child has a right to two healthy parents. If you feel that your ex is unhealthy, and we know that they are, and especially with what happened with you, but domestic violence is separate from custody factors. And so if you're going to go in there and say your ex needs to be kept away from your children, you better have some really powerful evidence, convictions, police reports, but understand that even people in jail have a right to be part of their children's lives as long as they're kept safe. So that's why people often will figure out some kind of step-up plan, like a parenting plan with supervised visitation, things being monitored, testing for drugs and alcohol. I mean, we have seen we only deal with high conflict cases, and we've done hundreds in the past few years. We've only seen a couple where a parent had no rights. And we had one case where the parent actually wrote away their parental rights. But it is extremely rare. And often people think, well, I want my kid to have less time because I want to keep them safer. If your kid has time, unsupervised time with that other parent, less time is not going to take away the problem. So there's things that you can do in your relationship with your kids and teaching them how to advocate. And often kids in these situations have to develop very advanced social emotional skills revolving around boundaries, because they're dealing with their own parent. They learn to keep themselves safe. It's not, again, it's really complex. It's not easy, and it's very scary. If you really feel worried about it, like you need to have really strong evidence, or we want our clients to be the proactive problem solvers. Come in with some ideas with how your ex still can communicate with your children, where you're showing you're still trying to do what you can to support the kids' relationship, but safety, that universal agreement, everybody wants our kids to be safe. So how are we going to all work together to make sure this usually very young child is safe, or a kid with special needs? How can we keep them safe, but still allow access? So there's ways to craft arguments, but again, you want to align with the things that the court cares about. A big argument that's very strong is talking about a child's consistency, stability, and routine. So right up there with supporting the child's relationship with both, it's like, is something in the schedule or something that's happening with your ex disrupting your child's routine? But again, that major value of like, everybody wants a child to have access to both parents, unless, again, there's significant evidence of harm directly to the child. We have a client whose ex broke her arm while she was holding her baby. And he was kept away from the kids for a while, and now he's fighting back, and the kids are older, and it's like a whole new thing, So the more time that passes, things get, we call them stale. And it's astonishing, but the people are like, well, like, yeah, that was really bad, but oh, they took anger management, or oh, they did this, they did all these things. So we're going to give them more chances. And so that's why it's so important for you to get some guardrails in there and to keep arguing really hard, but respectfully, let's not forget and let's take a look at that. And how can we still make sure, blah, blah, blah. It's very, very tricky.
How do you know you have the right legal team? Like if you are going into court and you're just not making the right progress, or there's, hard evidence that perhaps my ex shouldn't have majority of time because there's all this documentation that he or she has done all of these things wrong, but my legal team seems to be dropping the ball. Okay. Like, how do you know if you have the right team or the wrong team?
Okay, so one of the things that, like, our clients, people are always saying, I need to find a lawyer. Do you know a lawyer who understands this stuff? And we often say it's not real. Like, most lawyers don't deal with a huge percentage of high conflict cases. We know a couple that do. We call them unicorns. But most of them really don't have tons of experience because these cases are few and far between, even though for us it feels like that's all there is because that's all we deal with. So it's important for you to do something which we call taking strategic oversight of your case and running your case like a business, and realizing that no lawyer is going to know as much as you do in terms of your family, and nobody cares as much as you do. So the burden is on you to really step up and understand what what certain laws are, what the custody factors are, putting together really clear, concise timelines, aligning it with things that matter to the court, and giving it to your lawyer so that they basically just translate your case into the law and do as good a job as they can. One of the things that our clients often face are lawyers who do not communicate with them, who don't answer, and they're freaking out. And they're like, what's happening? Like, why aren't we doing this? If you have a lawyer who's not communicating and you're saying, can you please help me understand why you're not filing that motion, or why, and you're not getting answers, that's a problem, because your lawyers or your team needs to be your allies and your advocates. It doesn't mean that you run the show and you tell them how to do their jobs. But if you're bringing up something that seems to make sense and they're saying absolutely not, you need to understand why. You need to be able to sleep at night to feel like they've got you. They're not just dismissing how you feel, because these are our families and our children. Like, this is the most important thing. So you need to feel like your lawyer's on your side. That's like a big part of it, is feeling like I can trust my attorney. If you do not trust your attorney, that's a problem.
What about guardian ad litems? If they're a court-appointed guardian ad litem and you feel they're not properly advocating for the children, are there steps that you can take?
So that's, guardian ad litems, there's such a wide range, because there's some that are awesome, especially ones that have a background in psychology and or law enforcement, ones who are forensics, who really dig deeply and take the time and write very detailed reports and have meetings with you, your ex, your kids, the children's therapist, the collaterals, which means the witnesses. Those are like the good ones usually. But there's some that don't do anything, that like months and months pass and they haven't met with you. They don't get back to you. They're sending you bills. Like, they haven't met with your kids for a year and a half and they're making a report. So when it's court appointed, it's hard because you don't have a say in it. But if let's say you get a bad report, which happens, you have the opportunity, or you should have the opportunity to, and if you have a lawyer, have your lawyer cross-examine the guardian ad litem. One thing we really don't recommend is filing a complaint against a GAL, a guardian ad litem, while they're still active on your case, because we've had clients that met us after they did that, and it did not go well because you've really disrespected and challenged their authority. So there's ways that you could try to work with certain guardian ad litems, but you have to understand that they feel like they're professionals and they need to be able to do their job. You don't want to pound them over the head with all your stuff and be like, don't you see, can't you understand? Like that looks bad. So it's like a trying to have a balance of respect for their job, but also being like, if there's concerns I have to present them properly, because it's all about persuasion and credibility. I need this person to listen to me. I can't come with guns blazing or I'm just going to turn them off. So I have to do it delicately and realize there's egos involved. And if I cannot get through to this guardian ad litem, then, and I get a bad report, then at least I can cross-examine them. But don't file complaints against guardian ad litem.
Okay.
Maybe later when the case is over and you're away from them, but not while they still have power. Judges listen to them 85% and more of the time. So you cannot afford to make them your enemy.
Okay. So pretty much if you know what your guardian ad litem stance is, that's more or less going to be what the final ruling is because the judge weighs so heavily.
Yeah, not always. Not always. We've had cases like in the UK, one of our clients in particular, there was some very creepy abuse, I think I'll say, going on between the other parent and one of the children. And that they had a social worker that was like a guardian ad litem who was making observations and made a report. Oh, the other side we should start with overnights in a few months. And when they went before the judge, she was, of course, beside herself. She had her lawyer question and the judge said, you know what? Even though you've given me this analysis, I feel like I want to wait. I want more investigation. So it's not 100% of the time. And I'm so thrilled that our client was able to be heard and she did it properly.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrifying.
I know, it really is. And that was one where we were like, up at night, worried about that one.
I imagine so.
Yeah.
So I know we had talked before about alienation factors, and there's quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Do you want to, and you don't have to go into full detail about all of them because I know it's going to be time consuming, but
that's okay.
Can you just identify?
Yeah, this is the kind of thing like we'll generally coach our clients on deeply. So I'll just go through them. So first of all, these are based on what's called the Baker model, and they were originated by a researcher and psychologist named Dr. Amy Baker. And so the Baker model is often used to build an alienation case. I've interviewed Dr. Amy Baker. Her book, Co-Parenting with the Toxic Ex, is excellent. It's on our domestic violence reading list, our domestic violence center reading list. And she's extremely knowledgeable, even though, she's a bit of a controversial figure because of the whole parental alienation being such a controversial topic. But I felt like, I still feel like it's very important for our clients to really understand what alienation means, to make sure that they're not doing anything wrong, because there's all kinds of insidious things that we ourselves do that we might not even realize. So Amy Baker has about 17 different factors, which we narrow down to 6 when we teach them with our clients and in our book. So the first one is, and this is probably the most common, is sending poisonous messages about the other parent to the child. Whether it's a lot of people don't say it straight out, but they'll send messages that the other parent is what I call the 3 U's: unsafe, unloving, or unavailable. So it's not just words the other parent says, but body language, tone of voice, eye rolling, making a kid feel like, just little comments about the other parent. Oh, dad's here. Wow, that's nice. Oh, it's great that he's not late this time. Just little things. And that's even more overt. But when a child who is being turned against another parent, they start developing the sense that if they show any affection towards, let's say, you, the other side's going to be like annoyed at them, or they'll be punished where there's no words even said. So poisonous messages, big. That's really big. Okay, the second one is blocking contact and communication. So when one parent is not honoring a parenting plan, making court-ordered FaceTime calls really difficult, acting like they're making things difficult. When I talk about blocking contact, it also means that both parents should have full access without a court order to doctors, schools, and extracurricular records. Sometimes parents make the mistake where they'll be like, well, I'm the primary parent, so I'm not going to put my ex on here, and I'm going to put my boyfriend as the emergency contact. You don't do that. Okay, so blocking contact and communication. The third is erasing and replacing. So you never want your child to call any new partner of yours any version of daddy or mommy or zaddy or whatever it is, because only the bio parent has that, unless maybe they died or some other, strange, unusual situation. So you really want to make sure that your child, no matter what, that they still can call their other parent mom. You don't want to tell someone that their step parent is their new mommy or their new daddy, which we see a lot. And let's see, replacing is where it's almost like you want to make the child feel as though the other parent was never really part of their history or their life, where they try to minimize that you were there, or like you weren't that important. Yeah, so that's like bigger, but basically making it like you're not important and that the child can just replace you with somebody else. You don't ever want to do that. The next is encouraging a child to betray another parent's trust. So we see this more with older kids, like tweens and teens, where one parent will be like, oh, could you like find out what's going on at that other parent's house? They'll grill them. They'll ask lots of questions and kids feel like they have to answer. But also they'll have kids go over and listen in on phone conversations, take pictures of, get into their parents' drawers, sometimes get into their computers, their phones, and report back to that other parent. So that's a big no-no. The next one is to minimize someone's authority. So to make it like, well, my rules apply to both houses. So bedtime is 8:00 at my house, and you better tell that other parent that it's the same at their house. You are only allowed to eat this stuff. You're not allowed to eat that with the other parent. So you don't do that. You're each parents, and people on the day-to-day get to do what they want, and you can't control them. And we see this a lot with our own clients where we're like, no, don't do that. And even in communication a lot, the way that you talk to an ex where you act like, well, I'm the one who's always taking care of the child, so I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And not like, that's no, don't do that, because that looks bad. And it can be twisted against you in court. And then the last one is encouraging dependence in a child. So I'm not talking about really little kids who obviously are dependent, but to make it like a child can't think for themselves. Often a lot of narcissistic personality types need supply. They need attention, and they use their children as their supply. And so they'll keep the kids dependent by infantilizing them, making them feel helpless, like, oh, let me do this for you. I know my partner, Chris's ex, used to lay out their boys' clothes on their beds, like well into middle school. It's like you want to make your kids be independent. And as kids get older in this kind of dynamic, often they'll use money, where it's like, if you don't do what I want, I'm not going to pay for your car. I'm not going to pay for college. I'm not going to do this. So kids are like, I better do what that parent wants, or else they're not going to take care of me. So we want our clients to encourage children to be independent, to not have to do what an abuser wants just to get something from them. So those are, in a quick nutshell, the 6 alienation factors.
Okay. Wow. I'm like, so many of those things are like red lights flashing with them.
Right?
Yeah. So you can still have like a high conflict divorce without children.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have many of those clients?
Yeah. Yeah, most of our clients have kids because we have loads of custody battles, but we have a number of clients who don't have kids. It's about money, and it's about things not being fair, or the kids have aged out. So usually high conflict is about money, but keep in mind that a high conflict divorce, it's not that 2 people are high conflict, it's one that's high conflict. So, and the other thing is that you can have a high conflict person who doesn't have to have a high conflict divorce. And the trick is they need to have a great attorney, because if there's 2 attorneys that can work together, then that attorney people can manage the difficult person and still have a very smooth divorce. And so that's why we love, if at all possible, and we have seen it happen, collaborative divorce professionals who work as a team where the 2 attorneys know each other, they work together, there's a therapist, there's a financial advisor or financial expert. And so they're all working together to help get the couple through the process outside of a courtroom, to be like, let's just figure it out and lower the conflict as much as possible, and keep this family, not have the conflict bleed onto children, because the more litigious a case is, the more the children really suffer.
So obviously it's, if possible, it's great to have this huge team, but what about for the individuals, say that it's a financial abuse component where they have no resources to fall back on and maybe not even a support system out there that can help? Are there any recommendations for how they can navigate this?
Financial abuse is present in 99% of abusive relationships. It's the most common thing, money, being used to control somebody. So the best resource that I wish I had known about, that I found out like a year and 9 months after I got out of my relationship, is a local domestic violence center. There are so many free resources. I think me and my kids had like more than 4 months worth of once a week counseling that was free by trained trauma-informed professionals. Often domestic violence centers, they have shelters, they have places that sometimes they'll have lawyers that will not often they don't take on your case pro bono, but they can give you general legal advice. Just all kinds of, diapers and clothing, and people donate money to help pay for a variety of things. So definitely check out your local domestic violence center, or one that's outside of your local area, but still like an in-person one. There's usually free domestic violence hotlines where you could talk to people. Can help you put together a safety plan. If you're still in the relationship or if the person's still there, we talk about, and I'm a state certified domestic violence advocate, that if you're still in the relationship, you should come up with 2 safety plans. One is long-term, where like you gather, the birth certificates and all this stuff before you leave. And one is the emergency plan, where just like when you're pregnant, you have your hospital bag packed and you're ready to go. And also give you tips on like making sure that you start parking the car backwards. So if you have to leave quickly, you don't have to back out, you just go. And to not wear like thick jewelry or scarves, because strangulation is one of the most common lethal forms of killing somebody who's a domestic violence victim. So to be conscious of what you're wearing, to have like extra keys hidden outside to your car, and like all kinds of little things like that. That's free resources. So definitely contact a local domestic violence center.
Okay. And so I definitely want to talk about everything that you have to offer again, but is there anything else you think before we get into all of that we need to cover? I mean, there's so much more.
So many things. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's good. That's a lot. Like we went through a lot, surface level, but a lot of different things.
Yeah. So let's talk about all of the things that you have to help people.
Okay. Yeah. So my partner is Chris, and Chris and I are also a couple in real life for more than 10 years. We always say nobody cares, but a lot of people think it's really cool because we're like, Chris is the love of my life. And I met him after we both got out of these long-term toxic marriages with children. So we've navigated a bit of, we're not married and we don't live together, not yet, but it's really good, I think, for people to see a model of a couple who like adore each other and have built this business together. And we both experienced domestic violence, and especially Chris, who's 6'3" and a big guy, to be able to talk about what it's like for a man who's been through something like this. So we do strategy sessions with our clients. Our clients are all over the world. We say that laws are different, but the issues are the same. And the art of persuasion has been effective with our clients everywhere, men and women. So we do that. There's a number of things that we teach people, including strategic communication, targeted documentation, how to present properly in court, as well as to, GALs and custody evaluators, how to represent yourself, meaning go pro se. That's what I did for all those years. How to mediate effectively with people with personality disorders, and then the whole what to do when your ex turns the kids against you. That's a course, as well as our book that's coming out. So we have the strategy sessions. We have our online course. It's a series of courses. We released the strategic communication one, which is called How to Communicate with Your Ex Without Destroying Your Case or Losing Your Mind. So that's out. And then we're working on, actually another course that we're doing is on parenting plans, because Chris's expertise is writing airtight, high conflict parenting plans or parallel parenting plans. So we have like a do-it-yourself course that we're almost done with. And then Chris writes parenting plans for people and they just make sure their lawyer checks them. But it's a really great thing to have, especially as you're negotiating with custody ahead of time, just as like an initial proposal. And it's far cheaper than a lawyer doing it. And it's way better than a lawyer doing it because they use templates and they don't have the experience that we do with high conflict cases. So that's one thing. But the thing that I'm also super proud of is we have our weekly legal abuse support group, and that we meet every Sunday from 12 p.m. to 1:45 Eastern time. And we do the very unusual thing in the domestic violence space of blending our male and female clients together, because we firmly believe that abuse is a human issue, not just a gender issue. And since so many of our clients tend to be super successful, very well educated professionals or creatives or entrepreneurs, like they bring so much to the group in terms of their ability to research and just their perspectives. Like it's wonderful to have lawyers as clients, because I can't give legal advice, but when someone's talking about something, sometimes one of our lawyers will chime in and they're like, I don't know your case, but from a legal perspective, it's that. Or we have like behavioral analysts who will be like, oh, here's some tips of what you could try for your kids. Doctors who like they help each other so much. Like one of our clients' kids had diabetes and he's really little and she was having problems with her ex getting some kind of medical device, and another one on the call who works in pharmaceuticals was like, I'll just send it to you. I'm like, oh, you guys are amazing. So they make friends, and because we exclusively deal with high conflict cases, you're amongst people that all get it because they're all dealing with your ex in a different flavor, male or female. And so I think especially for men to have a place to talk and to be supported, and for women to understand what it's like for a male protective parent whose kid is clinging to them and terrified of going back with their mother, and to see like we're the same, like all our clients care about their children more than anything and want to keep them safe. So it's great to have like a little army of people who are all helping each other out. So in the group, we do not get into how broken the family court system is because it's not helpful. We get into strategy, and then we deal with bigger issues that no lawyer is going to talk about, is how are my kids going to be okay with a parent like this? And how do I co-parent with someone that doesn't care about our kids? It just wants to punish me with our kids. So our clients really feel supported, and I say they heal faster because of that support from the group. And then we also do this other client perk that we call free check-ins as part of a membership program, where we say when you're freaking out about something, don't waste $95 on average to ask your lawyer a question, because most of the time it's not legal, it's like a clarification thing. So we'll say send us an email and we'll write back to you as quickly as possible. We're really good with getting back right away, and we'll kind of talk you off the ledge and calm you down and send you on your way. But also, once we teach strategic communication, we put you on what's called the permission slip plan, because I used to be a high school English teacher, so we have lots of teaching metaphors. We'll say, so you are not, you can, what you think you want to say, the draft of what you've written, do not send it to your ex, send it to us first, and you have to wait. And then we will proofread and edit it for you, because we want you to have clean hands and the record to be clean. And you don't have the burden of being like, oh my gosh, am I saying it right? Am I doing it right? Like, we will make sure you are perfect for that invisible audience, and you will learn to do it yourself, like a little bird leaving the nest. So they really love that too, because they feel like, okay, I'm going to learn, like Lisa and Chris have got me, and I'm going to be okay. And so that really, we see them transform. Like people who couldn't breathe are now like looking better and healthier and getting rid of their cancer and their CPTSD. And so I always say our clients do extremely well in and out of family court. And I think it's because of the tremendous support they get. They get the free check-ins whenever they want it. They get the weekly group support once a week if they need it. And then we can really devote the sessions to the educational stuff. And I always tell our clients, like, my master's is in education. So everything we do, and Chris and I are both professional writers, everything we do comes from an educational perspective. It's not like we're just coaches, like we're, like teachers and trained in that. So Yeah, so that's what we do. And we have our book on Amazon, our first book, and the next book is going to be out in a few months, and the courses are coming out. So busy.
So how do people find you?
So easy. Just Google Been There, Got Out. You'll find us. Our website is beentheregotout.com. We're all over social media. Instagram's my home base. We have a podcast and a YouTube channel. Just Been There, Got Out. If you want to send us an email, lisa@beentheregotout.com or chris@beentheregotout.com. And our website has a little red button on the homepage if you want to schedule a free discovery call, which is a Zoom meeting with Chris and I. We'll talk to you and find out what's going on and see if and how we can help.
Okay, awesome. I love all of this.
Thank you.
Do you have any lasting major takeaway for anybody that's going through it or about to go through all of this?
Yeah. So keep in mind that a lot of people beat themselves up because they're like, I can't believe I was so stupid that I fell for someone like this. And just remember that domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men during their lives. And you think it's just you. Every time I go to any event with a group of people and say what I do, people approach me like, oh my God, this is me. This is someone that I love. So it's right beneath the surface. And as you're thinking, oh, I can't believe I was so stupid to have fallen for someone like that, remember that you should actually be thinking the opposite, because abusers are parasites. They attach themselves to what we call our shining stars, the most creative, responsible, brilliant, beautiful people. You were chosen, you were targeted because you made them look good. And they're so angry when you get away. And that's why this is happening. It's not because you're a loser. It's because you're amazing. So just remember that. And life is going to be so much better, but you're just going to have to get through this part. And you really do need support to get through it. But with that support, you're going to be a better person, and it's going to be better for your children as well. It's like I hate the term self-care, but you have to take care of yourself so that you'll be better. Your children won't have to be emotionally responsible for you. It's just worth it. You need to get support now. So even though you're the most responsible person in the world and you can do it yourself, don't get help.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of this information.
No, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for hosting me and letting me talk about this.
Thank you again, Lisa, for joining me today. And thank you, warriors, for listening. I have included the links Lisa was referring to, as well as her 1 in 3 profile, in the show notes. I will be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, stay strong. And wherever you are in your journey, always remember, you are not alone.
Find more information, register as a guest, or leave a review by going to the website 1in3podcast.com. That's the number 1, IN, the number 3, podcast.com. Follow 1 in 3 on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1 in 3 podcast. To help me out, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. 1 in 3 is a .5 Pinoy production. Music written and performed by Tim Crow.